he gives you the choice to choose him. And their children is going to have to choose. So any of them that's dying at 100, you better bet they wasn't choosing to be obedient to how God was reigning. And that's going to be considered a babe, 100. They must going to look good. 100.
I'm going to look good.
Yeah, Lordy. Okay, verse 18 and 19. Be ye glad. I'm not going to read all this in this expository. Let's look at these verses. Be ye glad and rejoice forever in that which I create. So he's telling you to be glad and rejoice in what I create. Trust me, Ian McCormick did not want to come back to earth. He just had a glimpse and didn't want to come back. Some he allowed to literally walk around and experience and see the mansions and see the flowers swaying and praising God.
The little boy and the mother from Rodney's church.
So just through his little conversation with God at the time that he was dying, he was forgiven already, and he was going to allow him to walk. Wow.
That's right. And so what it's telling me is that his word is true. It's telling me that his word is true. If you forgive others, I'll forgive you and I'll welcome you into my kingdom.
Can I say this?
He's faithful.
I can't help but just think about Paul. Paul, reminds me so.
I'm sorry. The kids, would y'all like to have some apples or I got some apples, cut up apples already sliced. Can I see them? No, that's the frogs. I got apples and there's some chips over there with sauce. So y'all want to get some?
Okay.
And there's some lunch meat over there too. We're gonna fix a little plate. Let Erica fix y'all a little plate. Sit over there, y'all. Get a chair. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking about.
Get the apples out the refrigerator. They're in a Tupperware container on the bottom of the shelf. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sit down. Hey, get your fingers off that glass. Sit down. Sit down so y'all can eat.
This is real life, folks.
Hey, you know what? Y'all can either sit over here and not eat or sit over there and be quiet. The only thing I want to hear is your teeth chomping. It's 3 chairs here. Sit down. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Well, yeah, Paul wrote most of the New Testament and 2/3 of it, but basically his life before he had the encounter with God,
he was killing Christians.
He was killing Christians.
And that's the one that got blinded.
Yeah.
He was a serial killer.
And he's a prime example of someone who recognized the goodness of God.
You think Paul was a killer? David. They had a song about David. Saul has killed his thousands, but David has killed how many? Tens of thousands. You want to talk about dying and death? Look at Solomon. I mean, Samson. Look at Samson.
Yeah, Samson was.
Samson was the guy with the hair. That's right. Yep. He probably was. The guy with the hair.
So these are different examples of God's forgiveness and His goodness and His mercy.
God sent these cinnamon rolls upon him.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's synopsize this. Let's synopsize. But be ye glad and rejoice forever in that which I create. For behold, I create Jerusalem a rejoicing and her people a joy. See, God, that's for them. God chose Jerusalem. He chose Israel to show. He took a people. It didn't make no difference who they were. Long as it was one that believed him. Abraham believed God, and it was accounted to him as righteousness. Meaning that he was put in right standing because he believed God. That's faith. That's how every believer, just because you believe what that prayer that we repeated, that's how you get in the right relationship. It ain't about nothing that you do, or how good you think you are, and how many sins you think you did not commit. It's by believing in Jesus. When you believe on Jesus, when you believe on God, then you get put in right relationship. So he picked he picked Israel as his people, and then he used them, he trained them and gave them his word and gave them his Christ, and then said, now I need you to go out and win all the other nations. He just needed somebody that would believe him, and Abraham just believed him. Out of the clear blue, he started hearing something talk to him, just like Ian heard that voice talk to him. And Abraham started doing what the voice told him to do. To the point where Abraham was getting ready to kill his one and only son that he had by the wife that he loved. Because he had another kid, Ishmael, but it wasn't by the promise. It wasn't by the woman that was,
Right.
And he pulled up that dagger, and God said, okay, that's it. I know you really believe me. So your belief ain't based on just what you think or what you say. It's based on what you do. You understand what I'm saying? So when God says something, do it. Show him you really believe it.
We're supposed to bear much fruit.
Alright, and it says, and I will rejoice in Jerusalem and joy in my people. He said he's going to rejoice in Jerusalem. He's going to joy. You know, God gets joy out of us when we be obedient to him and when we love on him and when we, you know, God can't worship himself. One thing he can't do, he can't worship himself. That's why he made us. He made man to worship him. So you know how blessed he is when we just worship him. Can you imagine how he feel when God say, okay, come on, y'all, saints, let's get together and let's lead one another in a hymn of praise to him. And you say, I don't feel like it. I don't want to. It's not based on what your feelings are. It's if you love him and respect him or not. I don't care. I can't sing a lick in most people's, hearing. God loves to hear me sing. I'll lead a song of worship. They asked me to do it at Serafina's funeral. One of the ladies we went to see her for 2-3 years. And they know I'm not a singer. But because we would go visit this lady every week for like 2-3 years till she passed. And they asked me, and I said, at first I said, you know what, I'm not a singer. Won't you get one of these singers to do it? Then they said, well, you used to be with her, and we would sing to her. And she loved to hear sing. I said, okay, you know what, they didn't have to ask me a second time. I said, you know what, I'll do it. So there's no way I should sit here and have to ask somebody, come on, please, lead us in a worship song, lead us in a worship song. See, they don't understand what worship is really about. It's acknowledging that he really is God. And I love him enough just to, if he sings over us, why can't we sing back to him? Out of our love and respect for him. Because you know what? The heart of a worshiper, he said, they that worship me must worship me in what? In spirit and in truth. And I'm going to tell you something. If you want to get God's undivided attention, worship him. That means adore him. That means, you know how some people just fall out and look at Jesus? He's just so beautiful. That's what he wants us to do. Like have Google eyes for him. And do you know that will stop him in his tracks? And whatever you want, he's like, baby, what you need? And I'm going to give you an example. The woman that had her daughter was grievously vexed with a devil. And she followed Jesus all around town. And she wasn't even an Israelite. So she was considered a heathen. Homegirl followed him around and said, please help me. Please help my daughter. Please. And do you know what the disciples in their little arrogant selves said? Peter, Paul, and all the rest of them. I mean, not Paul. Peter, James, and John, all of them. Jesus, will you do something about her? She crieth after us. And she was calling out to Jesus. But they were so arrogant. They was like, can you do something about this woman? Shut her up, do something. And you know what he turned around and told her? And he asked her what she wanted. She basically said, my daughter is grievously vexed with a devil. Can you help me? And he said, it's not right for me to give the children's bread to little dogs. And most people would have been offended and said, who you calling a dog? You know what she said? Even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table. He said, oh my Lord, I ain't seen no faith like this, not in all of Israel. She knew that he really was the Messiah. She knew he was the Son of God. She knew the only way her daughter was going to get set free was through him. And what she was telling is, I ain't got time for you to teach your disciples how to do this. She needs help now. And so I will worship you. She fell at his feet after she said that. And he had to stop and ask the Father, because in the Word it says, my salvation is for the Jew first and then to the Gentiles. So he was teaching the Jews how to carry it to them. So he had to go and stop because this woman worshiped him and said, hey, Father, you know what she just did? She worshiped me. What am I supposed to do about that? He said, give her whatever she wants. He turned around and he said, let it be unto you. And when she got back home, her daughter was in her right mind and everything was cool. So she got it before the Jews even got it. So you want something from God? You need something from God? You want to get something out of him? Worship him. Look at the woman that was at the well. She was a Samaritan. She was considered a half-breed. Half Jew, half something else. And they was not friends with the Jews. And even when she came there, she said, you being a Jew talking to me? This is what she was telling Jesus. He said, if you knew who I was, you wouldn't be trying to get that water. You get this living water that I have for you. She said, I might be a prophet. And then he began to tell her all about her life. Stuff that only she knew. And that's when she said, whoa, this ain't no regular man. She said, when Messiah comes, he's going to get everything straight. He said, I will talk to you and me. She said, what? You Messiah? She dropped her pot. She ran back into town, and she went and got all the men of Sychar and brought them to the foot of Jesus. She used to be a hoe. She was a prostitute. So she went and got everybody's husband. He told her, he said, you got 5 husbands, and the one you with now ain't even yours. And then when she realized that she was talking to the real Messiah, she went and evangelized her. Now, she didn't just say, come on, go with me, I want to show you a man. She had to say something to get, that city housed about, it had about 250,000 people in it. She brought all the men to Jesus. You better bet she was out there telling people about Jesus and what he knew about her. Him talking to her alone had to affect her life enough for her to be out. She was very persistent and she was very persuasive. And she brought all of the men to the foot of Jesus. And they said, now we believe because we heard for ourselves, not because of what you said. And that's what Jesus wanted to do to you.